Hello, so today we are going to go over very basic JavaScript syntax and the basic variable data types. So let's hop into it real quick. This is our hello world program. If we run this in our console, we simply get hello world printed out, and that should make sense since we're wrapping it in quotes, and then we are calling console.log on our string. So let's take a look at this code. First, we're creating a variable by saying let, we're naming the variable greeting, and then we're setting it equal to that same string which we log here. Running this yields hello world once again, just like in the first example, except this time we set a variable equal to the value we want to print out, and then we print it out using console.log. Okay, so here we pretty much have the same thing going on. We create a variable named greeting and we set it equal to a string value of hello world, but then we have these two slashes. These two slashes means that anything after them will not be executed by the interpreter. It is just a comment made by the developer. And the way it's useful here is I'm just kind of using it to comment out extra code that I don't necessarily want to run. Maybe I'm testing this code and I just want to isolate this code maybe or something. So running this will yield just the hello world like we're used to. If I uncomment this out and run it again, we will get the commented code will not run after we have hello world. Now also, since those were just single line comments, we also have multi-line comments. Anything in here, however many lines we have, anything within the slash and the asterisk and the slash, or the asterisk and the slash will close it off. Then we can console.log this runs, but none of this will run at all. You can have as many lines in here as you'd like. So now let's take a look at the number data type. Here we say let x being our variable name, equal 2 plus 2. And then we console.log x, and we can expect 4. So the way this works is the interpreter first adds the 2 plus 2, and then it sets that value to x, and then we log that out. Coming over here and running this will give us 4, just as we expect. Now if we try something like -1, let's save and run this now, we get 3. It makes sense because first we do the 2 plus 2, and then we set that to x, and then we say, okay, 4 is here, 4 minus 1, that's 3, and then we log it out. So we've got some simple multiplication going on of a negative 4.32, and then we are multiplying that by 2, and then we are setting that value to y, and then we log that value. Running this, I'm not exactly sure what we'll get, because I can't do that in my head, but we get negative 8.64. I just want to take this time to explain that a number in JavaScript can be anything between negative infinity to positive infinity, and all of the decimal places in between, and it will handle those nicely. A number is the umbrella term for any decimal point, any integer whole number, any negative number, anything you can imagine. Now we've got something a bit more complex. Here are all the operations you can perform on numbers. You've got addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, the modulus operator, and the exponential operator. So obviously addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, those are all pretty predictable. But then you've got the modulus. So the modulus is a very useful one in which you can take the remainder of a division. So we say 5 divided by 2 is equal to 2, but then remainder 1, and that's where this 1 comes in. So 5 mod 2 is 1. Then we have this double asterisk. It's kind of like 5 to the power of 2. It actually is 5 to the power of 2, which gives us 25. So let's go ahead and run this and see what comes out. We have 2 lines that printed. We have 7 space 3 space 10. We have essentially just all of these results delimited by spaces. Now this comes from this log. Essentially we just kind of put commas in between all of our variables, which means once they print, they will come out with spaces in between one another. So that's just a neat fact to know, I guess. And then here we are just adding them up and then we are logging them. So if you were to add this up, I can't do that in my head, but if you were to add them up and console.log that, you will hopefully get 48.5. So we've taken a look at numbers. Now let's take a look at strings a bit more closely. We had the examples in the beginning, but those weren't exactly too technical. So string is just a series of characters. It can be as long as you want, and it can hold whatever types of characters you want. Now we create this variable called intro, set it equal to a string value of hello with a space. Mind the space. So we've got intro now, concatenated, that is this plus sign. The only operation you can perform on strings are concatenations, really, and then we concatenate that with another string with the value of everyone. Under that we have kitty. So let's run this and we get hello space everyone, hello space kitty. So if we were to take away this space, save it and run it, we do not have the space. We get hello everyone and then we have hello kitty. I guess it kind of just, you know, sounds like the same thing, but we don't have the space there. Now, if we were to put a comma here, which isn't necessarily the correct thing to do, I'm just kind of fixing what I messed up. Really, you'd want to keep the space here and concatenate them, but we're going to just go like this and try it out. As you can see, just like with the numbers earlier, it puts that space in there. This is only true for using the log function. This won't be concatenated anywhere else except for in this log function. This is just a funny, neat thing you can do with console.log. So let's take a look at more concatenation. Here we have some funkiness going on. Let's run this first off and see what occurs. So we have 5 plus 5 equals 55 with an exclamation point, and then 5 plus 5 equals 10 with an exclamation point. These aren't meaning factorial. If you know what factorial is, I just wanted to show that you can concatenate after some arithmetic. So here, these 5s are sort of being treated like concatenating strings. These 5 plus 5s, it's just putting them right next to each other. It's not actually adding them. Whereas in this bottom one, we first add them since we have the parentheses, and then we concatenate with the two other strings. So this is something to look out for. Always remember to use your parentheses. It's exactly like PEMDAS. You go for your parentheses first, and then your exponents, and then multiplication, division, and then adding and subtracting, and stuff like that. Just remember to put it in parentheses. It's always a good idea to use too many parentheses. So here we're taking a look at booleans. So first we have a variable called cat count set equal to 3. Now we have cat count greater than 3. We know cat count is 3, so is cat count greater than 3? It's not. Well, this right here was a Boolean condition. This greater than symbol checks the left compared to the right, and then it returns either true or false. Running this, we'll see exactly what happens. So is 3 greater than 3? No, it's not. We get false. But under it, we get true. So what is going on? I thought cat count was 3. 3 isn't greater than 3, as we just set up here. It's false. Well, no, it's actually 4. This line right here sets cat count equal to itself, which is 3 plus 1. So 3 plus 1 is 4, and then we set that equal to cat count. We're essentially incrementing cat count. We increment it by 1, and then we try that. So now down here, cat count is 4, so 4 is greater than 3. That's where we get the true. More on this real quick. I'm going to say cat count, we're going to say plus equal 1. So this plus equal operator increments it just like this. We could put 5.2 here. We could put negative 5.2 here. Or we could put negative 5,000.2 here. We just change cat count by that amount and set it back equal to cat count. But if we just want to increment it by 1, we can just say cat count, just like this, plus plus. This plus plus only increments it by 1, and it will only ever increment by 1. We can also put this double plus plus in front of it, it will yield the same thing. It's a little bit technical how they are different, having the plus plus before or having the plus plus after. I'm pretty sure you could actually put them both there. No, that's giving me an error. But this will only ever increment by 1, and you'll see this plus plus operator often, so just be wary. It's just going to add 1 and assign that to the same variable. So here we've got quite a bit of code. I just want to make sure that I clear up that you can actually assign directly Boolean values. You can assign true and false directly. You don't actually need the conditions that we've been using. You can just kind of set them directly. So now let's take a look at some conditions, only number conditions. These will only ever work on numbers. You can check for greater than, 5 is greater than 2, that evaluates to true. Then we have 5 less than 2, that equals false. 6 greater than or equal to 4, that is true. Then we have 6 less than or equal to true, that is false. Now we have ones we can perform on strings. 5 is equal to true. I mean not true. 5 is equal to 4. These double equal signs denote equality. We're checking for equality. 5 equal to 4, that is false. 5 unequal to 4, this exclamation point with an equal sign after it means we're checking for inequality. Therefore, 5 is unequal to 4, that is true. So now we can check some strings. We have bop equals bop. This one is lowercase, this one is uppercase or capitalized. So that, if we're checking for equality, we're gonna get false since we have an uppercase here. So now let's check for the same exact string, but we're checking for inequality. This evaluates to false since they are the same string and we're checking for inequality. So lastly, we'll take a look at the conditions, the logical operators that you can perform on Booleans in order to get more complex expressions. So we have an AND operator, an OR operator, and then we can combine those two operations in order to create some pretty complex things. Now, the AND operator has two sides. It checks both sides, and they both have to be true in order for this to evaluate to true. Let me quickly run this. 11. Now let's say, okay. True and true goes to true. So, again, like I said, we have to have true on both sides in order for the Boolean expression to return true. We have a true and a false. Let's see what this gives us. This gives us a false. False and true gives us a false once again. False and false, again, gives us a false. So the only one that returned true was when both sides were true. Let's take a look at the OR now. The OR is kind of like the opposite of the AND. So we have true or true, that evaluates to true. True or false evaluates to true also. False or true also evaluates to true. Then we have false or false. Now, false or false evaluates to false because we don't have any trues. We only need one true to make this OR operation true, whereas in the AND operators, we only need one false in order to make the whole expression false. So now let's combine the two. So to keep in mind, we evaluate these from right to left when you're talking about logical operators. Once again, you can use as many parentheses as you want, and it'll make the code more coherent usually, unless you go excessive. But for these ideals, it's good to use parentheses. So we take it from the right all the way to the left. True and false. True and false evaluates to what? We have true and false up here, and that gave us false up here. Therefore, we can safely say that this Boolean expression will evaluate to false. So now we have this AND sign and also a true. So we have true and false. Since we evaluated this to false already, now we have this true and false. So again, true and false evaluates to false. So I hope that made a little bit of sense. We essentially just looked at this one, we said, okay, well this is going to equal to false, so now that this is false, we can take this side and compare it to the false we just got here. which evaluates to false. So now let's take a look at the or. We take it from the right. This false or true evaluates to true, since we only need one true to make an or expression true. So false or true is true. Now we look at false or true again, just like we evaluated above. So false or true is true once again. And we get true here. So here we combine the and the or. So the and does not get evaluated first. We actually look at the or first. So false or true gets evaluated to true. And then once we have that, we have true, and because we have true and true, we have true logged out in the console. I actually want to try something now. So if we try this with the or and the second one with the and, what are we gonna get? I'm not exactly sure because I'd have to think about it for a second, but if we go false and true, we should get false. Now we have true or, and then the false we have here. So I'm expecting true. Let's run this real quick and see what we get. We do indeed get true. And so that was the reason we both of these are true. We're good. Hopefully, logical operators on booleans are kind of weird at first because there's really nothing you can compare it to in real life that I can think of, really. But these are just kind of like memorizations. The and needs both to be true in order for it to return true. The or needs only one of them to be true in order for it to return true. And then combining them is kind of a bad idea if you're combining three without parentheses. I'd really recommend to wrap some in parentheses. So if you're gonna do it this way, if you need to check multiple, I'd really recommend using some parentheses, or else you're gonna get confused.